No.
Sorry.
You gotta stop doing that.
Well, I thought seeing as
It's
I was like, seeing as we're talking about the film, I might as well start.
Just like last week.
But no, me and John were talking about it being a Weezier style earlier, because like,
yeah,
I don't know, I personally thought it was a bit of a strange narrative to build a Weezier film around. But yeah, I'll get into that probably later.
We should probably start with what that is, because
it's basically like the exaggerated, like it's basically the style of martial arts where like they're using strings and like everything's kind of breaking the laws of physics, basically.
Oh, okay.
And if it's in the context of writing or comics, it's basically, it's just a martial arts fantasy story. It's normally in a fictional place where it's dealing with myths and powers and stuff. Like Dragon Ball Z is based on the kind of myth of the Monkey King. So the Monkey King is also kind of a wuxia, but it's more of a fantasy wuxia, martial arts kind of thing. Compare it to maybe the Five Kingdoms and a lot of Chinese martial art films. I guess the new Marvel film would be technically a wuxia then, but not in style, but just technically kind of in a way.
I thought you meant Black Widow, and I was like,
oh no, Shang-Chi and Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings.
So there's not actually a lot of fighting in it.
To be honest, like I deliberately haven't sort of looked at much about the Shang-Chi film, just because like I know I'm going to watch it, so I don't want to like know anything about it before I watch it. But yeah, I imagine it probably would be a Weezier, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's got some elements that'll go back to the past when it talks about his father, but for most of it, I tend to look at the kind of comics lore around it, what they're basing it off of, rather than trying to think too much into the film or watch too much of trailers and stuff.
I have to say, I'm glad you started off by saying Weezier, because I've only ever read it, and I was kind of earlier on. I was like, I do want to talk about this, but I'm 90% sure I don't know how to say it.
To be fair, I'd have assumed it was wuxia, so yeah, I would have said it wrong as well.
To be honest, all of us are saying it badly because we ain't Chinese, so there you go.
I was waiting for Emmanuel to go, I don't actually know how to pronounce it either. And it's just like, yeah, but you have got the actual like kanjis on your name, so I think you're much qualified here.
Oh, John, what's your video?
Up my butt.
That's why it's so dark. I wondered why I recognised it.
No, but that says Hump, so that's actually John.
Oh no, Humphrey's Humphrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broken John. Okay. Basically, when I go into gallery view,
still not there.
You don't show up.
Fucking hell, Pat.
Yeah,
oh no, John's video's off.
Yeah, it doesn't prioritize the ones without.
You just don't want to see you in bed.
I see. That makes sense. Okay. Sorry, what were we going to start with?
There he is.
Rob?
Whoa, bloody hell.
Antichrist.
Oh, it disappeared.
Yeah, no, I was just what I said really. Like I was talking to John earlier about it being a Weezier style, and I got nothing against like Weezier as a genre, I suppose, if you call it that. But
yeah, it is.
I just thought it was a bit of a strange. Like I said, I thought it was a bit of a strange story to tell with that kind of style. But then thinking about it more, and we'll get into it more later when Pat's here, I suppose. But
yeah, I
suppose it kind of fits the idea of it being not exactly an unreliable narrator, but kind of along those lines. It kind of makes sense because you're kind of seeing like the story through lots of different people telling it, aren't you? So it kind of makes sense from that point of view. But
well, I think you'll find, Rob, that's exactly what I said to you in the conversation.
It is.
It's also based off a Kurosawa film called Rashomon.
Is that actually based on it?
Yeah, all about unreliable narrators.
Yeah, someone was telling me about that the other day, that it's literally just like a film about several people sitting around a campfire or whatever and just telling the same story basically, but from different perspectives.
Really?
I do like it. We can talk about the true story is based off of afterwards because it's actually funny. But yeah, Wuxia, like I think now, and probably John might feel similar. After reading a lot of Chinese comics, so manhwa, compared to when I first watched this and would never have seen any kind of Wuxia kind of comics or novels. As soon as I started watching it, I was thinking, man, this is the Wuxia. And then I looked on Wikipedia, I was like, oh, it is. Okay. But I didn't really kind of clock it because I was just like, yeah, this is a classic storyline. This is a classic way that like they'll present honor and this and X, Y, and Z. It really is classic Wuxia, basically. But I also get from what you were saying why I think that's also partly the reason why Miramax was so hesitant to actually release this. 'Cause they
Yeah,
had it for, was it like 2 or 4 years before,
I think it's 2
after different
years.
conversations?
So I think it came out
Yeah,
in
they asked,
2002 and then they released it in 2004. But they only released it because Quentin Tarantino agreed to put his name on it,
yeah,
even
that
though
was
his
it,
only
yeah.
involvement was him saying you should release this. Like it's,
Basically, thanks. I didn't know the full story of that. I knew he's involved. So, huh?
but I think
But yeah, they
also,
didn't think it would go well, but it was number one for like 2 weeks.
I do think though it's probably it's a little bit more than the style. I think John should kick us off and then I'll go into that.
Oh yeah, John, it's your film. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I just like me and Rob were talking about martial arts films a while back, and I was trying to think of what I'd like to pick, and I was like, the first things that came to mind are obvious ones like Bruce Lee movies, and I was like, well, the three people that come to mind immediately is Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Jet Li, and I was like, first film that comes to mind for Jackie Chan is Drunken Master because it's like quite an old one and where he's actually doing like normal martial arts, quote unquote, rather than like the comedy style that he fell into afterwards. And then I was thinking about what Jet Li movie to pick, and I was like, I could go for The One or like Cradles of Grey or something. And then I remembered Hero just out of nowhere. I was like, actually, no, this will be really good because I remember the story being really interesting. And like, while I remember it being very, bless you,
Thank you.
while I remember it being very Chinese in its like action, like sort of House of Flying Daggers style, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Mm.
I was like, yeah, I think this would be really fun. Like, I don't know how well other people get on with it, but I remember really liking it. And then I was worried it wouldn't hold up, but I watched it and I actually enjoyed it more this time just because of the I actually know more about like that period of time in China and like the warring states and the
Yeah.
journey to unifying them and like the first emperor kind of thing and all that.
Agreed. I would say the same thing. I got so much more out of it now that I'm older compared to as a kid.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this looks cool. Oh, that was
Yeah,
cool.
just because like immediately, even just mentioning like Quinn and Zhao, I was like, oh, I know those names now.
So I really enjoyed what you were talking there because I was just watching the manual and you're going like House of Flying Daggers and he's like, and then like he kept on muting to go, muting back again.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say before about it being released in America, I think like aside from being like very sort of Eastern in its action and all of that kind of stuff, it's also very Eastern in its morality, which is why I think Alec didn't get along with it the first time as well, because obviously like in Western morality, it's all about the individual and it's kind of like you look after individual people, whereas in sort of China, the kind of idea is that nothing is above society. So I think a lot of American audiences would have, or at least the studio would have thought that a lot of American audiences would have thought like this is a film in favor of tyranny, and also it came out just after 9/11, so it's like, so I think that probably had a hand in delaying it a bit as well.
I forgot about that.
I get the idea that some people might not, because obviously, like, people like me and Emmanuel are like far more familiar with just Asian culture and like the sense of honor and stuff like that than other people, I guess. So it's just normal for us to watch this and be like, yeah, I get it. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I do get it because they were talking about because it does fall in line with mainland China's ideals, but that's also like part and part from their culture, like y'all was saying. It's just like, yeah, it's you do it for the greater good kind of thing.
Mm.
But then
Yeah.
a lot of heroes say the same thing. It's just phrased in a different way and done in a different way, so it doesn't seem the same.
Yeah, I mean, plus, like, I think one of the interesting things about any kind of story that does that thing is when you compare it to other stories and you're like, well, what is the greater good? Because, like, at the end of the day, the people deciding what the greater good is are still
Agreed.
people, and like, human error or selfishness or whatever can always come into play. But I did like that in this, like, I think one of my favorite lines was just I don't remember exactly what he said, but when Broken Sword's talking to Nameless and he's just basically saying like, one person's pain is not worth like an entire nation or something like that. Like, you guys all know what I mean.
Yeah, he did say
No
that.
idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Shut up, Dan.
Dan watched
So
it
I
without the subtitles, didn't you, Dan?
Well, I had no choice.
Yeah.
To be fair, when I
Mm.
started watching mine, it didn't have subtitles, and I was like, oh, for God's sake, I'm gonna have to turn them on. So I right-clicked it and was like, turn on subtitles, and there was two options. The bottom one was English, and then the top one, which was apparently already ticked, was French, but nothing was showing up.
Maybe they were just like, the French don't need to know this bit.
They wouldn't understand.
It's like, yeah, the French already know about submitting. That's fine.
Hey.
Saying
Kablam!
that, oh man, no. Saying
But
that,
no-
when I paid for the film on Amazon Prime, it declined because I used the wrong card, but it still allowed me to watch the whole film. So
For
I
the
don't
good
know
of
if
the
they're gonna
many.
ask me to pay next time.
And then Emmanuel didn't share it with us, which means that he is not honourable.
Exactly.
That's after me paying for it when it's for free.
Yeah.
So we paid for it. Two of us paid for it when we didn't need to.
I rented it, so yeah.
That's
I mean,
true.
I mean, before any of you did that, I immediately had already told you that I could get it to you, so that's all your own fault.
Yeah.
True.
You know how like fucking organised we were to watch Judge Dredd? That was like the opposite of this. Yeah, I had a bit of a fucking journey with this one. Just I don't know what I expected, but like I'd seen clips of it in film studies class, and I was like, oh, okay, but that was like years ago, so I didn't actually remember a whole lot. I think I saw the Sky and Nameless fight, and thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, just rewatching it, I was laughing my arse off the whole way through. Like every single fight, there wasn't a moment I wasn't creasing up. So by the time they kind of got to like the thesis statement of it, it kind of just came out of nowhere for me, and I was like, nah, this film was absolutely nonsense. And so I ended up kind of thinking that it was about I thought that it was going, hey, if there's like a dictator with good intentions, you should just let him plow through all of your people, just erase your entire culture from the earth, and just do what he wants. Basically, if he wants to do that, you just let him. And then it ended with, and then the king put up the walls to stop anyone doing it to him. And I was like, motherfucker, what is this doing? But then watching it again, I fell asleep through most of the fights, just caught the thesis statement of it and went, oh, right, I see. So it's actually about kind of the logic behind it being, if he's to act on kind of like Snow's plans for like kind of revenge or whatever, then that's going to just kind of lead to someone else taking the throne who's not after unity as an end goal. He's just going to be more wars. Whereas if this guy wins, he is eventually going to stop because of what Nameless has said to him. Because originally he's kind of going, I'm going to unite all languages. when I'm done with the seven kingdoms, when I'm done with the 6 kingdoms, I'm gonna like expand across the continent. And Nameless actually uses Broken Sword's teachings to like make him see like kind of the error in that, and to kind of keep it contained to China. And yeah, so it was just sort of like if you then kill him, then everyone that he's killed on the way, like all their deaths are going to be in vain ultimately. So I saw the logic in it more and was like, oh, okay. But
I will just make a slight correction there. Like Nameless didn't change the king's mind. Like he always fully intended just to focus on China. Like the things that he was saying to him before about like going on to the rest of the land or whatever, this was before he had sussed out that he was an assassin. So he was just talking to a vassal. Like he was putting on the act of the tyrannical
right.
king.
That was a propaganda thing.
Yeah, because
okay.
like the I got that anyway from watching it, but like the background story for like the King of Quinn is that he literally was just like sick of all the wars, so he was like, I'm just going to take over all the other 6 countries with one big war, and like it's not the best. It's like it's not ideal, but the wars are just going to keep continuing anyway unless we do something about it. So I'm going to unite everyone. Like he never wanted to like abolish other people's like culture or anything like that. It was basically just to take them over, and like yes, to try and get like one language that ran through the whole country so that everyone could understand each other. But he still wanted to like keep cultures alive and stuff, but just to unite everyone under the same banner so that they could be one complete country.
Yeah.
I think it's also like it's worth being aware that at this point, this is at the end of like hundreds of years of war, and it's like
Yeah,
a region where not even in living memory, like in sort of ancestral living memory, there'd never been peace.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was normal to get revenge. Like, but hate begets hate, blood begets blood.
Hmm.
You wouldn't not kill. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and like obviously that's inherently the flaw in the plan of like, well, I'm just gonna go capture everything and make it one, because like, you know, there's always gonna be violence and hate that comes from that. But you know, it did work.
Just when he's
I
talking
also-
about calligraphy and he's saying about like the people of Zhao write sword in 19 different ways, and like that is like their culture, and he's like, nah, fuck that, we'll do one. And it's like,
Yeah.
right, so you kind of are like, I do, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea like in concept, but like you are eradicating like something that's integral to Zhao culture as the calligraphy in that. So
I mean,
that's what
again,
I was a bit
I don't think he would have actually done that. I think that was just him being like the
overzealous.
tyrannical king. Because also, again, something that's not exactly explicitly explained in this, like you know that there's clearly a problem between Zhao and Quinn, but they, out of all the states together, like those are the 2 that are the most at ends, at odds even.
And that's a
like,
nice cold fact.
they had the biggest like, well, like each place had like another state that they had the most like hatred and whatever for, but for Quinn it was Zhao, and for Zhao it was Quinn. Like, so background there.
Yeah, there's multiple elements to it. Before that, I think one thing I found interesting about myself is that at the start I was just like, yeah, kill him. Oh, he's gonna kill me. Yeah, kill him. And then eventually I came over to what Broken Sword was thinking. I was like, actually, he does have a point. So like part of the way I was coming over to Broken Sword's line of thinking like towards the end, I was just like, yeah, actually, he does have a point. To add a bit more into the language thing, even until I think only in the 50s that things get properly united in China, where you could be in, I'm not gonna say Hong Kong, but Beijing or something, try and ask where the toilet is, and no one would know what you were saying. because of how many dialects in different Chinese languages there were, it was so ununited. I can't think of it. Divided. That's it. It was so divided. Like it stopped business and things from being able to work properly. So in the end, even though they could still speak their local languages, Mandarin then would by law had to be taught in all schools instead of their local languages. And then they they try and make it easier for literary rates, people reading. They changed traditional Chinese to simplified so that more people could read and write. So
Yeah.
even though he was saying something in jest, it did have a point. I mean, if people can't communicate, that's another problem on top of everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like the big difference is that he's like the portrayal he's putting out is that he's going to eradicate everything else other than what he wants. But the reality is, yes, he does want to unite the lands and have a like universal language that everyone can speak. But it doesn't mean he's going to get rid of the other ones. Like it won't be illegal to keep speaking other dialects like as you want. It's just you need to learn the other one as well.
I mean, that's one of the interesting things about the film, to be honest, because it's kind of, it does kind of give you a few questions of what's right and what's wrong, because it's kind of like, is culture more important, or is it more important that everyone communicates and is able to understand one another?
I definitely personally think that it's much more important for people to understand each other, because while culture is important, yes, like in an ideal world you'd have both, but if you can't understand each other, then that just causes infinite misunderstandings and needless deaths and everything like that. And the other thing is that often culture can be the cause of that, because culture isn't always a good thing. Like look at our fucking culture. There's so many things that are carried over that are just bad and do not help people. So like I've always thought that in the most sort of broad and simple terms, understanding each other is more important than anything else.
I think
And
that's the
hey,
thing, because
the
like,
French have culture.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? Because you kind of, because you can romanticize a language to the point where it becomes inaccessible. And once language is inaccessible, then there's no point in it, because the only reason that we have language is for a practical means. Like,
Exactly.
but that doesn't mean that you can't make sort of like, you know, beautiful things from language. But the sole purpose of a language isn't to be that, because yeah, like the whole point is for this to happen, so that you can communicate and understand one another. So
Yeah, like a really simple example of that is slang. Like you go into a country, or even just learning a language, like a second language, if you're not a native speaker, there's pretty much no way you'll ever get to grips with all the slang that exists, just because that's how it is. But that doesn't stop you from understanding other people, because they still use normal words as well. Like
Yeah, it was the fighting, basically. The fighting was the big area where I just could not penetrate. So this is
Well,
ridiculous.
they clearly did.
Did they?
Yeah, they penetrated hard.
yeah, no, there was two scenes where the style of it, well, it's not the style, to be honest. Like, it is, like I was saying to John earlier, like it's just the execution of a couple of scenes that I just thought looked really like it made it kind of look like an absurdist comedy for a second. So one of them was the arrow scene where they're kind of like outside and they're sort of like deflecting all the arrows. I thought that went into looking a bit silly. And the other one is the one on the lake where it looks like Nameless is like breakdancing on top of the water.
but
Yeah.
keep in mind, neither of those were true.
No, but it's just the way they looked. Like I was kind of, in the back of my mind, I was like, I know this isn't what they're going for, but it looks a little bit like an absurdist comedy. Like
Maybe it's just because I'm used to stuff like this, both from other movies of this style and also just like how ridiculous anime can be. But I had absolutely no problem with it. Like I can step outside myself and see like some of it looks a little bit silly, but not like to the degree that like Alec felt, for example. I watched it and I'm just like, no, I get what they're doing.
Even in like I kind of got what they were doing. I just felt like they wanted me to go, oh, this is really artful and stuff. But I was kind of, when I was watching the first fight between Jet Li and the guy who's playing the blind guy from the Rogue One, I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. And then they're on wires and they're just sort of jumping at each other, and I was like, okay, that's a little bit silly, but all right, I see. And then he's like jumping off and he's doing like a horizontal one, and I was like, that's a little bit silly. And then and then he like the spear guy jumps up and he does the splits and he's upside down and he's going, ah! And I was like, that's a bit silly. And then the kicker for me was when he gets up and he's got his leg up and he's doing the spear under his knee, and I was like, that's really silly. And yeah, by that point I was just, and then Jet Li runs through all the rain and it all splashes on his face in bad CGI, and I was like, oh.
I will
Oh, that
say
was
though,
fun.
I will say though that scene was like it was. I don't think they meant to do this, because I don't think Chinese films are ever made with anyone in mind other than the Chinese. But the placement of that scene was quite good because it does kind of acclimatize you for what's to come.
Yeah. Or did it? Because the arrow scene, oh fucking hell, I was pissing myself through that. Just when they're kind of doing the calligraphy and everything, and then the old guy is just sitting there, and there's just arrows just coming in, and he's just like,
Oh, that was deep.
everything's fine. It just looked like an anxiety medication advert.
I mean, that's
Oh,
like
it was just
that's standard like Asian like pride. Like you carry on working, like doing your duty to the last moment, like
Yeah.
especially when it comes to like invasions and stuff.
I
But then
did
they
really
just-
like.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, like the bits where like the arrows were just sort of randomly picking people off. Like I thought that was really well done. That looked really cool. But like I said, when they went outside and started fighting the arrows, I was just like, it's not doing it for me.
It's doubly funny because it's intercut with them going like this with arrows, and then the guy is standing still, and the arrows in the wall keep becoming less and more depending on which cut. And then in the middle of it, you got Broken Sword, and like he's like fucking going at it with this brush, and his hair's going on. It's like, and I didn't know where to look. I was creasing up.
See, I thought it was hilarious. Like, not in the way that you did. I realized as soon as I started that sentence, I was like, no, this has that agreement. Like, I like the scene in general. Like, I don't see a problem with it. But the one bit I did find funny was just the fact that he's like continuing with his calligraphy, his brush breaks, and then he goes, oh, for fuck's sake. And then like he moves back, grabs an arrow, and I was like, oh, was that the one that was going to hit him then? And then he just breaks it off and uses it to carry on.
I think that's possibly one of the ones that
was great.
was making us think it was an absurdist comedy, just kind of like, oh no, my brush is broken. Ding, thank you.
But yeah, again, it's supposed to like highlight one, his sort of martial prowess, but also his dedication to the calligraph arts. So
The art, yeah.
But yeah, I'm willing to concede that it's just kind of the style of like, you know, and I'm just not familiar with that style. But yeah, that and the lake scene where Jet Li's stunt wire just seemed to malfunction.
See, Rob was saying about that, and like most of the things you would bring up and be like, this was a bit silly. I'd be like, I get why you would feel that way. Like, I don't think it is at all. But I get that if you're not familiar with this kind of thing, that's kind of weird. And there's a lot of that water scene that I would see in that way and be like, I think it's fine, but I get why you wouldn't. But that particular moment, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Like, I think it really I think that actual moment really makes the scene impactful, and that moment to just show you what's going on. And then I'm just sitting here thinking, and all Alex saw was a guy spinning around going, fuck, one of the wires broke.
Yeah, well, honestly, but between the lady from Zack Snyder's Justice League, kind of just off key, just waiting for Wonder Woman to come out and going, and then him just wailing. Yeah, I kind of was, I could kind of see little bits here and there, but yeah, it was all just a little The bit where they started playing tennis with water droplets was where I was going like, okay, I don't know.
I mean, I think it's the same kind of problem that the second and third Matrix movies have, where they like try and make sort of anime style things in real life, and
Yeah.
it doesn't translate as well because like a lot of it is just traditional like sort of storytelling martial arts stuff. But like, for example, what you just said, the hitting the water droplets at each other. I don't know if there is any inspiration for that in just sort of standard Chinese stuff, or like in that sort of movie art style or whatever. But that's a straight up anime thing right there.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
you're right about it being similar to the Matrix sequels, because with the Matrix sequels, as soon as they start doing that stuff, I kind of get what they're going for, but the only thing that's going through my head is like, man, these guys are huge anime fans, and it's a similar thing with this.
It
No,
reminds me along the same lines of slicing lots of leaves in the forest before they fall. That kind of classic.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's the typical thing of like like slicing through a leaf, or like someone does like a sword strike and it like slices a droplet in half or something like that.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. There were just so many shots where I was going like, I don't know, because it's when they kind of pan out from the forest and then you see just one lady go, ooh, and then you see the other lady go, ooh. But yeah, I can definitely see. I think that's one of my big sort of blind spots with films though. Just when you're doing things that I feel like should be in a cartoon, or like or in an anime or something being done with real people, I just don't. I think there's just some things that just get a bit lost in translation.
He says loving superhero movies.
Yes.
Oh yeah, saying that, even though it's a set up kind of thing, I found it quite impressive in Japan. It was a few years ago. I watched this master. They set up a shot where it was empty bullet shells. Fired them at they fired a empty bullet shell at him for him to kind of like deflect with his sword by
Yeah,
slicing down. He's like a kendo master with that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, obviously, the physics or gravity breaking stuff, just, isn't possible. But there's a lot of things that people, and I'm not saying that's the case for this, but there's a lot of things that people are like, oh, well, that's just not realistic. And it's like, well, I mean, it's not like it's in the realms of possibility. Dipping your sword in the water and bouncing back up, not so much, but
Deflecting 30 arrows by going like that, and you're wearing a big sash curtain.
Well, that actually isn't out of the realms of possibility.
I feel like it might be.
It actually isn't though. Like there are genuine martial arts based around like using clothing and stuff, and actual like momentum, and depending on the fabric is made out of, it's actually entirely possible.
But the thing is,
if you want to demonstrate,
Yeah.
I was going to say the only thing is the arrows go through walls, so
Yeah, Dan, that's why I brought up the momentum thing, and also martial arts. Walls don't tend not to move or fight back.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? Like, it's another cultural thing that gets lost between.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it kind of relies on it being very nearly impossible and possibly impossible, because it's kind of showing that they're that higher level of a skill in that particular thing. So it's if you wasn't going, that's probably not possible, then it wouldn't be doing its job, and that works there, but it doesn't always work here.
I think it's kind of like it's a superhero type thing, right? Like when you watch a superhero thing, it's supposed to be like, oh, this is impossible because the Hulk's really strong and he's green. Like that's not real.
This is impossible. You
can't
see
be
it
green
against the green screen.
I don't think I've ever had the thought, Superman, he can fly, he's a real hero. Oh, Thor, he's got the power of lightning. Oh, the Hulk, he's green. That's fucking mental.
Try and find him in a jungle.
Yeah, it's kind of like the martial arts version of superheroes, right? Because they're doing these crazy
Basically, yeah.
like when he like with the it made me laugh when he's hitting the swords with the pole and it's bending so much. I'm like, it's supposed to be solid metal, and it was like all their swords were all bent. I was like,
I have to admit that was another bit where, like, in the back of my mind, I was going, "Should I be laughing?" But every time he slapped someone with his sword, I was just like, oh.
he's like slapping a titty with it, and I was like, "Oh man, that really fucking hurt."
Yeah, fucking hell, that's the name stabbing her, though, wouldn't it?
It's my titty, Jeffy.
The scene where the arrows are flying towards the house as well, and you've got like the camera angle is like it's almost like it's mounted on an arrow, and all these arrows are moving towards it. I thought that was a really cool shot, but it was another one where I was going, should it be funny? I don't know.
like
I mean, think of it this way, Rob. Imagine you were on the other end of the spectrum and you're watching the arrows come down. Would that be funny?
But you're like, I can do martial arts with a net curtain, so I'm alright. I can do it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's like the fact that the people inside are getting hit by these arrows, and they're just like literally going like this.
I did think that was really cool, though. I thought that was shot really well.
I know we're not on. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, I know we're not on acting, but there was like one extra that was like fucking distracting me with that because he just looked so fucking bored and like he just wanted to go home. And I was like, "There's arrows raining down on you, man. Die at any moment." And he was just like,
I think I know the one you mean, but I actually thought that was done quite well. Because,
"Oh,
like,
really?"
Yeah, because I was kind of thinking, like, in that situation, you probably would have someone who was sat there like, "This is my last minute, for fuck's sake."
No,
I mean, yeah, just consider the different emotions that different people would feel in that moment. Like, some people would probably be shaking, others would be like panicking, others would probably be laughing because they don't know how else to react. And then, yeah, you'd probably have people who either can't express their emotions very well, so it's just a stern face, or yeah, they're just like, I mean, I'm definitely dying now, so
Yeah.
this guy looked like he was behind a Karen and a McDonald's. He was just like,
I mean, yeah, he was watching all his mates die, and he was like, "When's it gonna go?"
Just sat there like, I've spent my last moments in front of this fucking box of sand.
I'm not even writing it with ink. It's going to disappear in 5 minutes.
No one's gonna know what I've written. I might as well draw a dick.
Oh man, I'm just imagining like that. That's just me in that situation now. Like the pride of the country relies on you, and I'm like, I mean, I haven't really learned enough of the language to do a proper character. I'm gonna draw a dick.
I could just imagine like us being next to each other and me sort of glancing over and being like, "Dude."
And then I'd look over and see that you draw boobs, and I'd be like, "Dude,
I know."
What does this say about our intentions?" Like, an arrow would be good about now.
Just imagine like the king coming over after and just being like, "See, I told you there was nothing wrong with this."
They deserve to die. But yeah, in terms of the story, like I think the story is fantastic. Like, because I mean, I've said before, I really like unreliable narrator things, and I'd actually forgotten that this was one of them. Like I unfortunately remembered, like as soon as I remembered the film, I immediately remembered that Jet Li was trying to kill the king. Like, so that bit didn't get to be a nice surprise for me again. And then I think about half an hour into the movie, I also remembered that none of the people were killed, like none of the assassins were actually killed, like until the end. But the only bit that I think is kind of weak is at the very end when he's like, you know, we've seen him do this unstoppable 10-pace move that cannot be avoided, and the king's like, so how were you planning to do this without a sword? And he's like, I was going to take yours. And then I'm like, well no, hang on, that's not your move though. Like, you'd have to go and get the sword, and then like the king knows martial arts as well, so like, while you might be better than him in general, like this, the whole point of this was for you to use this move. Like, what would have been a better story point there would have been the fact, like, he's already, like, he hasn't said it yet, but shortly after that, when the king like throws the sword down, he turns around to look at the scroll with the word sword on it, and then he's talking about how, like, and this is a typical like martial arts sort of thing, where he's like, the reaching this sort of pinnacle of the sword is like, the sword is part of you, like there is a sword kind of thing, like you could use a blade of grass kind of thing. And they could have just gone with that. Like, he could have just had just something on him that was vaguely like thin and long, and then just been like, this is what I'm going to use. And they could have just put that into the story, and I feel like it would have worked a lot better than him going, I'm gonna take your sword. Then he goes, yeah, go on then.
I will
Because
say,
I love it. Other than like, I love it in general anyway. But that bit I think is the big part.
I will say, like, just because I've taken the piss out of a few bits of the choreography, the fight between Broken Sword and the King, I thought that was done really well.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was. I'd probably say that's. Well, no, I wouldn't say that was my favorite scene. That's my favorite fight in it, I reckon.
I think the thing is as well, like, it's at least like structured in a way I can appreciate. And you kind of, because I was like, what's the point of Sky necessarily? And it's just kind of like, that's the fight with Sky is to get his foot in the door.
Yeah, basically.
And that's what. Yeah. Even just on a first watch though, I kind of thought this is a little bit too easy. He could just be fucking anybody. He's like right there. Like, I feel like something a little bit fishy's going on. And then I don't know about the bit with the candles. I think I liked the idea of the candles. And like just showing kind of how his motive toward him is changing. But I think I'd have liked a little bit more of something like, because the Emperor seemed quite clever. He seemed to have like quite a lot of just kind of acumen. Like, he was like, I wish it was something that he was just looking at him and going like, you're gonna fucking murder me, aren't you? But instead he's looking at the candles and they're going like, he's gonna fucking murder you, mate. Like, I don't know. I'm just rambling really.
I think that's just a cultural difference again, to be honest. Like, the whole candles thing is like a big deal. So like,
I like the idea of it.
It's part of it. It'd be part, like, in their culture anyway. It's part of his intelligence to be able to like notice the sort of movements of the candles and what they mean, kind of thing.
Yeah. I quite like it. I think also when they started spinning, I was like, I don't know how that. I don't think that looks great, but yeah, I like it. I like it in concept. I think as like a story, I think it is nicely structured in a way I can appreciate. But yeah, show me about the fights.
I think
sorry,
just on the structure of it, I think like when you were saying that sort of after you first watched it that you thought it was a film that was in favour of tyranny and that kind of thing. I think one of the things that I kind of wanted to say for tonight is I think that the biggest thing against that is in the stories that they're telling. So in the Emperor's story, that's the one where Broken Sword and Snow are probably like portrayed the kindest.
Which colour was that?
Blue, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was blue.
Yeah.
White is truth, red is the lie, and blue is the Emperor's side.
Okay.
But I thought that was an interesting choice because I mean, in Nameless's story, they're not shitty people, but they're kind of like manipulating one another, and
There's shitty people. Like, there's no sugarcoating it. They are shitty people.
But in the Emperor's story, like you can see the love between them, and they're shown as like skillful, and yeah, I think he's the one that actually shows them as like good, honourable people, which I think goes against the idea that the film is in favour of tyranny.
Go on.
Well, because if the film was in favour of tyranny, then why would he see any value in them, in the people that he perceives as being against him?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's actually I think that's actually quite a good point as well, because like this is why, because apparently I've looked into the trivia of this, and the director said that the colors don't actually correlate with anything, but I think they possibly do, because I think like when telling the first story about them and they're in red and they're meant to be like these really kind of shitty people and they're like really high emotion, and it's all about betrayal and like all that red. And then like he's going, that's not who I know them to be, and then they get turned into that where everything's blue, and so I think the blue kind of generally connotes like logic and that, so that's who. So it's like in complete opposition to what Jet Li's trying to portray them as and what he knows them as. And then the next story is in white, which I think is going to be like the neutral one, and that's kind of like the truth, like kind of the truth of it, I think was what I was kind of.
Yeah, I would say basically the same thing. Like red is the sort of the lie, the danger, the anger sort of thing. Blue is like tranquility and like often used for like honor and stuff like that. And then white is neutral, which the truth generally you would see as the neutral option when you're talking about stories.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the yellow when Snow and Moon are fighting. I'm also not sure about the green curtains, but
I mean,
I'm sure you can pick it apart.
I think the yellow was literally just so that they could turn it red when she died.
Another bit of trivia was that the director actually got people to go into the woods and sort leaves into groups of 4, like dominant colours, for the shot.
Yeah, when you first told me the thing about the director saying that the colours had no meaning, I was I don't know. I don't like it when films do that kind of thing, because I just think
This
I don't know.
shouldn't be a definitive thing. That should be up to you as the viewer.
Well, that's the thing, like, because I was kind of like, if you're going to do something that's that kind of dominant on the screen, like there has to be something behind it. So at first I was like, I don't like that there's nothing behind it, but yeah, I think sort of thinking more about it, I think it's a little bit of a fib. I think the idea is just that he doesn't want to colour your perception of it.
Yeah, it must be, because there's no reason for them to be in different outfits with different colours to tell different stories. Right?
I saw an interview with him, and like he was basically just like, yeah, the colours have no meaning. It was just so I could organise things. And I was like, you are lying.
Because I might get confused. Like, I'll be doing this thing, and I'll be like, shit, was this the lie or was this the truth?
That was the thing. I was
Was that in the interview?
Say that again, Emmanuel. Sorry.
Who was that in the interview?
Oh, it's just the director. It's just because Alec told me that the director said that the colours didn't mean anything. So I started like looking at things myself, and one of the things I found was that interview. And yeah, he was just like, yeah, no, I just needed a way to organise the shots. That's all. I was just everything about it was making me go, you are not telling the truth.
I will say though, the like it's not really something you probably think about in the moment, but something that I really like about Nameless as a character is that like he spent 10 years, like it wasn't just on that move, because like he was clearly perfecting his martial arts in general, but he's spent 10 tireless years like working towards this revenge, and then still intends to go through with it, like even when he's in front of the emperor, in front of the king, and in the end he realizes that it isn't in the best interest of the land, so he do it. But that's like, obviously that's the point of the story, but the fact that that's 10 years worth of like hatred and all that training and everything that he did, for him then to do that, like, is a big fucking deal.
I think as well, like I think this comes down to the actor, but I found the actor for the Emperor quite charismatic as well. Like when he's talking about getting rid of the unifying everyone with like one language, and he's going like, wouldn't that be something? And like he's generally quite excited about it. He's like, that'd be fucking awesome, wouldn't it? And I was just like, I actually quite like this guy. Like, I know he's a fucking
That's perfect, man. That shows you how strong that actor
Spot,
is,
but-
because like dictators don't become dictators by like being shit people. They need to get the people on their side. So that's
Yeah. Well, that was what, because when I said about it was advocating for dictatorships.
Mm.
And you said I don't think he's a dictator. I think he's like a populist leader.
Mm.
And I saw it like a lot more because he clearly doesn't want to kill Jet Li, but he's got fucking a
doesn't have
million
a choice.
people going execute him, and he's like, fuck, if I go back on this, I'm gonna lose people, and then I'm gonna wind up wasting all these lives I've just, I've killed to like just get here.
Yeah,
He's
and
like,
like
I
Mendes
have
knew
to.
that as well. He knew exactly what was going to happen because he was like, remember this from a dead man saying this to you. Like he knew exactly what would have to happen after that.
Yeah. I thought the guy playing the Emperor was really fucking good. Like, I might have to bump my acting score actually, because he was really fucking good. Sorry, talk amongst yourself.
I think that leads me into what I wanted to say is my favourite scene in it is exactly that, where the Emperor's you've got that sort of moment on his face where you can see that he absolutely doesn't want to execute him, but he knows he has to. And then the shot after that, where you have all of the arrows on the wall, and then it just sort of slowly comes down to the silhouette of Nameless. I thought that was perfect.
Yeah. And I do like the whole thing of like, he was executed as a traitor, as an assassin, but buried as a hero. So like, even though he had to do that, he's still like
honored him.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm sure it was probably done in secret, but eventually those things come out, and then by that time it's not a problem anymore.
I can't really take the piss out of Pat now because my score's gone from. Oh no, I can. I was going to say because it's gone from a 4.5 overall to a 6.8 over the week. Yeah. No, so no, I'll give it a 7 for acting. That seems more fair.
But yeah, it's funny to me that the Joker was like the colors don't mean anything, because that's actually one of my biggest like production things that I really enjoy about it, is because they do fucking mean something. It's very clear.
I even like that little bit in like the castle. Oh, sorry, Emmanuel, I didn't realize you were talking.
That's all right. I was saying, me and Camilla was saying, we're thinking that they're just playing it down, because even though it was originally the cinematographer's idea to do the colors like that, and the director agreed, at the end of the day, there's most likely some kind of thought process behind that, like, oh, this kind of part of the story would be nice in this color, and this would be nice in that. So even though they might not have tried to give it real deep meaning, they associate those colors with the feelings and things that's happening in the story at that time.
Yeah, it could be a completely subconscious thing that he's not. Yeah, that I think that's valid. Like, completely. Sorry, the thing I was going to say was I like that the castle. Very. I just kind of like little details, like, and stuff, like, and he's gone like I've taken, there's nothing in the castle that allows you to hide. I used to have curtains in here, and that caused me a lot of fucking issues. So, there's now absolutely nowhere in this castle you could possibly hide if you were even going to do. Did I like this film?
I just realised something quite cool.
I might have liked this one.
Well, you know how we were saying that white is kind of like the neutral colour, and it's most likely to be the truth. Am I right in thinking that white light is every colour combined?
Yeah, it's every colour, the brightest it can be.
So all the colours have come together to create the white story.
I mean, don't phrase it like that, but
well.
Here you go there.
Bloody China.
I think that also,
especially you, Rob, the whiteboard man. Like, you can't say stuff like that.
I think that also ties into the armies of Quinn being like traditionally it sort of ties into them being kind of a propagandist state. So you have the truth of what happened, and then you have these guys who are all kind of following like this preconception of just who the emperor is, and it's like
that's quite an interesting. That's an interesting thing about him being a populist leader as well, because then it's kind of like the truth is everyone's perception combined.
Yeah.
Because I guess you could make the same case for Black.
Well, yeah, I was literally about to say, like, just remember the fact that, you know, most of the way through the movie, apart from, well, okay, not most of the way through, in all the real situations we see that aren't memories, and at the very start, like, Nameless is wearing black fully.
Hmm. But they don't mean anything. It was all just pretty colours.
I think that leads us nicely into something that I wanted to ask. And does anybody have a favourite segment?
Arrow scene.
What was that?
The arrows. And stuff.
I meant as in colour segment, but that works.
Oh, right.
No, that's all right. I was
I
going to say
think my favorite was the white segment because there was much more of a dynamic in terms of the differences of, oh, they don't all want to actually kill the emperor. He doesn't. Broken Sword doesn't, and obviously his disciple is then not going to want to. So you have that dichotomy. But I don't know. The white and the green sections were pretty cool, but I think they were all really cool.
I was a big fan of the pink scene because it had fucking in it. Sorry.
Yeah,
Continue.
it's hard for me to say like which one I prefer the most because they, like, again, to go back to the whole white thing, is they all come together to complete the story fully. So it's like the weakest on, like, if you look at them individually on their own, the weakest is the red story because it's just a story about a guy going and fighting people and killing, and end of story. And then like the blue story is like the first dip into, oh shit, it's not what we thought it was. And then obviously the white story is like, oh, it still wasn't what we thought it was. And then like, so they just sort of compile on each other. So like I would say that the blue and the white, if I was to have to pick, would be my more favorite ones, but I don't think I could pick between them because they both have their own elements that are just really like pivotal and crucial to the story.
I do think the red kind of indicates a lot about, because it's obviously something that's been orchestrated by Snow and Nameless, and so they're not thinking of him as anything other than a tyrant. So they're not going. So they're obviously thinking like, oh, he's just going to believe this. So they just make up this story that is not true to anything. So I
wouldn't even say Snow had anything to do with the story because like they never had any real time to interact. Like that was all Nameless.
Which is, I mean, it's still interesting because it's that reading of the Emperor. Like, oh, he's not going to fucking know, is he? But like, not banking on how perceptive he is.
Yeah.
I'd say the black scenes are all pretty cool. Anything with the Emperor in, anything just kind of where the Emperor and Jet Li are kind of facing off. Like Jet Li's telling him stories and he's going like, yeah, well, I don't know, and he's like just like picking it apart. Like, I don't know why I can't think of a reason why that appealed to me. But like just those scenes are all cool to me.
I think for me it's between the blue and the green because the blue one is the first one where you kind of have the contrast of sort of like everybody's different perceptions because you've seen the characters as they are in the red story, and then the blue one tells a story about completely different characters. So that was kind of nice. That was kind of the first bit where I was kind of like So I don't know if you guys do this, but where like I kind of found myself like leaning into the screen and just sort of like being like like just sort of really engaged in it. And then the Green story as well I found really interesting, because it's a story where like Nameless wouldn't have necessarily known what was going on. So it's kind of like his perception of sort of events that he wasn't there for, which I thought was quite an interesting way to tell that story of Broken Sword not killing the Emperor.
Saying that, I think the blue story is probably closer, a little bit closer to the actual truth, like based on the true story is based off of in a slight way, but then the white story is kind of close to it too.
I mean, yeah, because the red story is the complete lie. The blue story is the Emperor being like, "This is what I think happened." So, like, yeah, it's gonna be closer to the truth.
Where is Emmanuel going?
I think he's on his way home now.
I'm in a garage.
I thought you were driving.
Or a parking lot. Sorry.
Oh, right.
Well, someone else was driving. You taking my pizza? Someone else was driving.
Emmanuel can't drive a car; he falls asleep.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought you said his
I
balls
can.
asleep.
I just gotta. If I'm driving by myself, I just gotta take breaks every half an hour. I mean, it's still not good, but yeah, it's better than nothing.
So yeah, the most important discovery is that Alec actually liked this movie.
The more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like, this was really good. It's a shame because this is the thing. Like when I was marking it for story, I was like, the fights are my biggest bugbear with it, and they are so much of it. And I was like, everything I'm kind of praising is probably about half an hour of the film.
I think the thing is, because like the story is like there's so many layers to it, and like I was saying earlier, like there's a lot to consider on like a morality level of sort of whether it's right to do one thing or another, and sort of, you know, what you think the right thing to do in that kind of sort of context is. But the reason I gave it a lower mark for purpose than sort of anything else, like I didn't give it a low mark, I still gave it a 7. But the reason I marked that down a little bit is because you've got all that going on, which is really interesting, and I think that would have been more apparent if the style of the fights wasn't so sort of fantastical.
Because that was where the disconnect happened for me, because after, I don't know, three quarters of the runtime are fights, and then the last one they just go, and here's the morality thing, and I was like, where the fuck did this come from? And looking back, the morality bit is the interesting bit for me, not the fights. I don't necessarily remember any of the fights. That, I mean, I clearly do because I got the thing over the fucking. But yeah, the morality stuck with me more than the fighting has. So yeah, and the fighting actually distracted me from the morality bit and gave me a different reading to it. So
I don't know. What I quite like is the fact that they don't mix the talking and the fighting. So I find that a lot. No, because when you look at like say, I don't know, Western action films, they do a lot of talking as well as fighting at the same time, and it can get a bit messy in some respects. But like, I like the fact that it's choreographed really good. It's really well done, and I respect their kind of showmanship, but their kind of their technical ability, and that's what I really liked about it. So I knew a little bit about like their kind of fighting, and they're like the peak of their ability, right? But yeah, it's just it's an art form in some respects. That they kind of because they have to plan these things before they do them, so they'll basically fight each other and they'll make sure that everything's right, and then they'll do it like say in one take, and it's so good. Like there's loads of different martial art films that do kind of this type of thing, and they're always like a spectacle in some respects.
Yeah, I was saying the other day, like I think the reason I like martial arts films is kind of similar to why I like wrestling, because it's the same thing of just sort of telling a story through a fight, innit?
Well, that's it. I'm campaigning for martial arts round now.
That's what I was hoping for in film round, to be, if I'm honest.
I mean, yeah, it probably mostly will be.
I'm picking old boy. Fuck you. It's not even a martial arts.
But which
That's close enough. It's inspired a million different scenes in martial arts movies. So
it's martial arts, but with a little hammer.
I'm surprised you didn't react to that, Pat.
I'm trying to sort my mic out.
It sounds like it's worked.
Do you want to, while you're sorting your mic out, do you want to say some things?
Hi.
What are your thoughts on Hero?
Good film.
Good.
Oh, good. What was your favourite bit of Hero?
The arrow scenes, probably.
Really, the arrow scenes?
Yeah, I love the
that
arrow
was
scenes.
cool though.
It's quite ridiculous how many arrows there were, and
I genuinely loved all the fight scenes. Like, they were ridiculous, but I loved them anyway.
There's.
Fuck.
Ben, any thoughts?
Well, it's a film that I need to probably see again to really get my head around, because I think like what you've been saying now is making me think, oh, actually there's a lot more thought and a lot more logic behind this film than first we'll get out of the first viewing. Like the whole depth of the story with the colors and the symbolism and the metaphors, it's all there. It's just kind of like on this surface level of kind of like over the topness, which like Alec at first I was a bit like, I can't quite take this seriously enough to understand it. But as Rob said, it's kind of like with their culture is that's how they would like represent fantasy or a story being told from from a perspective, just being like exaggerated. And I do appreciate that. I thought that was quite clever. But at the same time, I didn't quite like get behind the characters enough for me to take it for granted and go with it. I think that was my issue with it. I didn't really empathize with characters enough, the main ones. Whereas something like Seven Samurai, you really get behind the characters because they're so vivid and they're so well, not just relatable, but just you understand the journey they want to go through. You know what the characters want and what they desire, and what they want to achieve in that time frame. And this wasn't quite clear for me, at least not enough.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with it, is that it is quite. It's a very different situation to one that any of us have ever been in. So it's quite hard to plug into to what the characters are going through.
Oh, I don't know. It's basically like being in sixth form, but carry on.
But yeah, I think when you've already got that kind of difficulty, or when you're already asking the audience to do something that's not really a natural empathy. I think when the fighting scenes are jarring you on top of that, it is very difficult to get on board with it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just me, but I felt like the subtitles were like really fast.
Fast?
I don't know. Yeah, because when I was reading them, like I'd
Yeah,
get
they were.
some bits, and then they kind of cut off. Like, it'd go to the next dialogue.
I definitely didn't feel that way, and I was about to be like, Dan, are you just a slow reader? And then I was like, wait, Dan's dyslexic, so probably.
I agree with Dan. I also, even though I read tons of subtitles, I also am a slow reader. So there were times when I had to rewind it a few times because I was just like, crap, I did not get that.
Probably also depends where you watched it, to be fair, because I downloaded mine, so I don't know if my subtitles would have been the same. But
sometimes subtitles really go like out of sync as well. They're like some pieces of dialogue are really quite quick, and others are really slow. and that happens on Netflix a lot and Amazon. So it's
Well,
weird.
so
Yeah.
it didn't help how actually it was edited, because there were some bits that made me think of Garth Marenghi, and he's like going like, "Oh yeah, I killed Sky and Sword and Snow and Broken Sword," and he goes like, "Ah, you must be quite a formidable warrior," and he goes, "Ah, very perceptive of you, Emperor." Like, it was just cut really quick, and I was like, "Ah, cool." And he's like, "You killed them," and he goes, "Sure," and I was like, "Oh yes."
Yeah, I don't know. I find that I'm quite a slow reader, but I didn't have any problems. But saying that, I did watch a different version to you, because I don't know if the Blu-ray version is different to the Amazon Prime version or whatever.
What I do know is
Yeah.
that the Amazon Prime subtitles are absolute piss all the time. There's never any good ones. They're just crap.
Yeah, well, that's what I think
Oh,
I said before, is that when we're talking about Schindler's List, is that the certain films have subtitles like burnt in, that like this is what say Spielberg wanted for subtitles, but Amazon and Netflix do their own subtitles, so they take
Oh,
that
do
out.
they?
And
The
therefore,
amount of times
it's
as a
not as
character
authentic.
and they're speaking a different language, and then they've gone, into subtitle this, and they've subtitled it French, and I'm like,
Yeah,
you
it's like
cunts, I know they're speaking French.
Oh yeah, that annoys me whenever. Yeah, I'm just like, please. Even though it's small, it matters to me.
Yeah, because like even if it's insignificant to the plot and the story and the characters, whatever, I don't care. It's still in the movie. Let me fucking understand it.
I just,
Like,
yeah, I was just going like, oh man, I really hate it if Amazon Prime just went for this one, just went speaking Chinese. I was just like,
But like it just stays like it never like flashes on and off. It just stays up from the moment Jet Li starts speaking to the end of the movie. even during the fight scenes. Well, no, actually, no. It will be speaking in Chinese, and then whenever a fight scene starts, it just says fighting in Chinese.
and it just comes up with every so often in Chinese. Yeah. Like another, like one of my favorite scenes was when the leaves all change color. I think that was just so good.
Yeah.
It's just like some of the scenes are just so well done. Like, did they have to get loads of extras for it, or did they use like CGI?
They actually hired every single extra. Everyone you see in there is a real person.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but they also do film tricks where they make it look obviously bigger than it, or it look like there's more people than there actually are.
No, they're all real people.
No, they're
I read it on
all real
IMDb,
people.
therefore it's true.
They are real people, but they'll do like one angle, then another angle. But quite a few of those from the other shots will also be in that shot. But they made it seem like there was more than it actually was, even though there's still a buttload of people, and it was the most expensive Chinese film to that date, I think, wasn't it?
Really?
Unless anyone else didn't read.
I mean,
Yeah, it was the most.
Pat's job.
Yeah, tell us the budget, Pat.
Was it Pat?
His microphone is not working.
No, it's working now.
Oh,
Oh, it actually was.
I had to leave the meeting to get it to work.
It's brilliant. You didn't even make a fucking move. It was just, you were just going like this, and you're going, rah, 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 rah. And I thought it wasn't working. And then you didn't move at all. And then you went, no, it is now. And I was like, shit.
Yeah, did you see the budget already, Pat? Oh, I've got it up. If
Emmanuel, there's a time and a place.
I've just been reading while you guys have been talking. So apparently, well, it's about the film.
Fucking rude.
Apparently, the lake scene took 3 weeks to film because the director insisted that the surface of the water had to be completely still.
Oh, fucking hell. I mean,
quite like that.
that makes sense because it obviously in certain scenes it won't be because they've just touched the water, but like for any moment where they're about to hit the water, it'd just be so much worse if the water was disturbed already.
Yeah, I really like that.
It just goes to show how big the director's vision was and that he wanted to make sure that it was as perfect as it could be. But yeah, that scene where obviously it's in the Blue story, so this didn't actually happen. So again, I think Rob said this at the start, but it's what I was saying to him earlier, that like pretty much every single fantastical thing that happens in terms of fighting is all in the stories that aren't the true story. Like the only thing that I can think of that happens in the true story is, you know, his like, you know, surgical precision strike, and, you know, doing that to the Emperor as well. Like that's pretty much the only thing. I've lost where I was going with this though now. Fuck. Because I was about to talk about something else, and then I remembered that, and I was like, oh, I should mention this because I do think it's important. Fuck, what were we talking about? What were we just talking about?
Oh man, you've made me forget as
Go
well now.
You were talking
We
about
were
the lake
talking about
scene.
the
and how it
water.
took-
Oh yeah. No, it was the lake thing. Thank you.
I was in the room.
Where it
So,
happened.
like I didn't go into more detail with this earlier, but like I do think that scene's so important because, again, even though it's not real, I just love the, you know, he introduces it as like the two of you. I imagine the two of you fought even though you had no intention to hurt each other, and then it starts, and then obviously Brogan's sword breaks away from the fight because he notices the droplet landing on Sky's face, and it's just like, oh, I can't have this. And then, you know, Nameless is about to stab him, and then sees why he stopped. That it was literally just to like dry her face, and then his cable snaps, and he smacks the water.
Gunfire malfunction.
But no, it's like genuinely, I think it, like, for me anyway, it was a really powerful moment because it's like, you know, you're viewing it in the context of these basically superhuman people, and like the whole time all they've been doing is running on the water or using their weapons to like propel them back up and stuff like that. But this is like, he's like, oh shit, I can't do this. And so he smacks the water. There's no slight movement, because like normally any movement technique in martial arts that involves anything to do with water will have like a gentle name, and that's normally because it involves, you know, gentle movements. But the fact that he slaps the water and then is so out of control from there, like from the force of it, just goes to show like how much effort he was putting in to stop himself, because he didn't want to go through with that. And I know, like, to other people it looks silly if you're not like sort of tuned into that kind of thing or used to it, but I think it's a really like powerful scene when you get on with it.
I really just love the idea that it was a technical malfunction and the director was going like, it's amazing, there's so much emotion in it, it's got all the symbolism, and Jetli's just going like, fuck. but yeah, no, I see that. I see what you mean.
It was quite funny to imagine him just going, oh, it's beautiful, and Jetli's like, get me the fuck down.
I ain't drowning now.
So I had to look at the most expensive Chinese film list. It was level with a film that came out a year before it.
What was that
film?
So the year before it was a film called The Legend of Zoo.
Oh, really?
Which was 35 million, like Hero. But since then, there's been 6 films that have broken what they made Hero at.
I mean, that's not a lot when you consider the time difference.
Yeah, that's like 20 years now.
So,
yeah.
I'll go based on what's directly above it. So you got Warlords in 2007, which was 40 million. The Promise in 2005, 40 million. The Curse of the Golden Flower in 2006, 45 million. The Monkey King in 2012, 60 million. Red Cliff, which is apparently a really good film as well.
Yeah.
2008, that was made with 80 million.
That doesn't surprise me.
The Flowers of War is the most expensive Chinese film made in 2011 that cost 94 million.
Yeah, I really want to see Redcliffe. I've heard like great things about it because I'm pretty sure it's like Romance and Three Kingdoms stuff. And yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, Chinese epic war film.
Mm.
I'm going to bookmark that page because I'm going to watch.
And when are we all going to watch that new Seven Samurais movie?
Oh no time, because it's made by Zack Snyder and fuck him.
Wait, is it
Oh.
really?
Link me to it.
Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon is based off of Seven Samurai.
Oh no, not that. There's an actual.
Oh.
I don't remember when it came out. I just remember hearing about it. So it's either something that might have come out ages ago, it might come out this year, or it might not be out yet. But it was like basically practically a remake of it.
Is it a cartoon?
No, I think it's a live action one.
So I know there's an anime based on it.
But the problem is I have no idea what it's called, and I have no idea who's involved in it. So
Is it called The Magnificent Seven?
Oh, that's it. No, fuck off.
Because that's the first thing that appeared on my search.
I think the production in this was great. Like, sure, some of the things don't hold up like mega well to now, but like obviously, particularly the color choices and stuff like that, I think was fantastic. Like, I really liked the use of the candles. I didn't remember the significance of the candles until he mentions it again, but I'd already been paying attention to them. Like, I was like, I wonder, like, I mean, I guess it's just a long room with one exit, so the wind would be flowing in that direction. And then I'm just like, I mean, I'm just going to keep looking at him and I'll see what happens. And then he mentioned it. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I think all the production was really good.
I did like it when they're both sitting there and it hasn't been established yet, and they all go like, and then he's like, "What was that?" And he goes, "Nothing." So it's when they're spinning around, and I was like, I don't know. I think there's production was a tricky one because I knew everything was quite purposeful. There were some landscapey things where I was like, is this like The Fall, where you could literally go to that location and basically just film that again? And I was like, no, there's a lot of stuff going on with like the costumes and that I think is, you know, it was actually like really high quality. So but yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff with like kind of like just general just the stunts and everything. I was kind of, I know it's purposeful. I just didn't think it worked. Was kind of
I mean, to be fair, like I've often said this, and like, well, obviously, again, for me, I think they're great and they work fine for me because I'm used to this sort of media and like I appreciate that kind of stuff. But I think an important thing for all of us to remember really is that just because something was done intentionally doesn't mean you have to like it. So like I totally get where you're coming from. Like just because it was intentional and like it's what they wanted doesn't mean it works for you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, it was honestly, I think this is the trickiest film that we've scored because I don't know how much of it was working for me, but I know that a lot went into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the amount that works for you is probably the amount that gets it up to a 9.5.
Oh my god, you're right. No,
Imagine.
I'm afraid it is a 7. Is at 7 currently. The more I'm thinking back on it, the more I'm like, that was like a lot better than I possibly gave it credit for. But I do have a largish glaring obstacle here where I'm going like, I didn't get on with it, like the main like feature of it.
I think for me,
again, sorry, Rob.
I was just going to say, I think for me personally, the way that you've described it, if I was you, then I would have probably marked it quite high on everything except for impact and purpose.
Yeah, well, at the minute,
But then production does come into it too.
at the minute it's going 778,659. So I think that's all
Whose number's that?
fine. Did you want all the categories or what?
No, he was making a joke about it being your phone number, I think.
Oh. The thing with phone numbers is they generally have more numbers in them.
In this country, racist.
I said generally. In Hong Kong, they don't even have postcodes.
Generally, so you're saying that we're the center of the world?
I said Hong Kong don't have postcodes.
Neither do Ireland.
Actually, I should paste in the group. I should paste an address from Japan in the group, just so you can see just the madness of the dresses there.
Oh no, it puts it level with About Time.
When I was working at, I was just going to say about the postcodes thing. I
think you like this more than About Time. Carry on.
I really like this a lot more About Time. Sorry.
When I was working at study group, we had somebody apply for a course who lived in Qatar, and their address was literally like 23 Qatar.
Man.
Oh wow! But most of the things in my 7.0 rank, I like a lot. I like Hero a lot more than these. No, it'll go under Iron Man 2. That's okay.
John.
Yeah.
Just to go back to Redcliffe, I think you might enjoy it.
I mean, I imagine I would.
Because it's directed by John Woo.
I mean, I like him. I do think his style is a bit overdone. Like, I'm not saying him himself, but
yeah,
the inspiration from it, I feel like it's been way fucking blown out of proportion. But yeah, like, I'd definitely be interested in watching it at some point.
Oh man, I've gone through such a journey with this film. I feel like I should be nameless. And like Hero should be the emperor, and I'm like, fuck you for advocating dictatorship. And then over the course of it, I've gone like, nah, you're all right, really. Go on then, murder me with arrows. That's
so what you're saying is Broken Sword is just me and Rob being like, no, really, you need to understand his intentions, and you're just like, fuck.
I think when I draw this, you'll be the emperor. And Rob will be Broken Sword. I was like, this is garbage. And Rob was like, I think it's not garbage. And I was like, maybe you're right.
And I'm just sitting there smugly being like, maybe I am garbage. And Rob saw through me. He knew I wasn't all along.
And we just have Pat in the background going, he came here to shit on it.
To be fair, Alec, you are a dictator when you're drunk. You sort of take over the whole chat, don't you?
Wow.
Yeah, that analogy worked quite well, really, because for like the first few years of our friendship, it was just you going to everyone, no, he's not as bad as he sounds, I promise you.
Bless.
But yeah, so again, just to summarize, I think the story was great. I think the production was great. I think the acting was great. I think the impact was great. Like I almost gave it a 10 for impact, but I was like, purpose again for me, great, and enjoyment, fantastic too. But that's what I was going to say to you, Alec. I've forgotten it. And words. That's again, I know I harp on about this a lot, and I'm not saying we should change it because there isn't really another way for us to do it. But you having that problem of being like, I feel like I liked this more than what I'm scoring it, is exactly why numbers don't fucking work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm very willing to admit that trying to grade just sort of subjective reactions to this with numbers is just going to be flawed just on its own. But yeah, I don't know if there's like an actual. I don't know if there's an alternative.
No, there isn't. The alternative. I mean, basically, what we're doing now is the alternative. Us actually talking about it, because like this is why like I always had a problem with reviews that have numbers on them, because people would just look at the number and it'd be like 7, and they'd go, "Oh, well, that's shit." But then when you read the actual review itself, and it's like it's telling you how good it is and what's great about it, but like the content you're giving is at odds. Fuck, I almost did it again. Is at odds with the number. So like it's the same here. Like a lot of the time, I'll give something when people will get really, and then I'll talk about it, and they'll be like, "Oh no, I get where you're coming," but it doesn't kind of match up with the number.
Well, I think I don't think this is something we should implement here. Pat, just brace yourself. But like, I'm a fan of a little podcast, and it's called EFAP.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. They have they have an objective scale. They have a subjective scale. When Endgame came out, they went subjectively, I fucking loved it. Objectively, fucking hell, like what a mess. And I think that's kind of that's sort of like kind of a better way of possibly going around it, but it's kind of we're not here for that sort of stuff. Like
plus I think
do that here.
I think that only works for certain people. Because like I mean I don't know if I've ever spoken to you about it, Alec, because I'm not sure we've ever been to the cinema together. Maybe we have.
We saw Force Awakens together, I think.
Oh yeah, it's very rare, so I doubt I've ever mentioned it to you. But whenever we've just randomly got talking about like how we rate movies and stuff, I've often said to like Pat and Ben and Rob and everyone that that's how I do it. Like I have whether it was a good movie or not, and then whether I enjoyed it or not, which is my objective and my subjective. And that is how I actually look at movies. But I think just inherently as people, but also as people who aren't doing this as a quote unquote professional thing, one of those will always influence the other. Like if you're enjoying it like way more, you're gonna either not notice or not care about a lot of the objective things, sometimes to the point where they don't even register to you as a problem. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I think this is something that where we get into sort of stuff with Batman and that, because like I never was growing up with the Tim Burton Batman and everything. So everything kind of pre Nolan Batman, I'm like Batman and Robin's the fucking best of these because I fucking laugh my ass off. And it's like objectively fucking dreadful. Just subjectively, I was fucking laughing the whole way through. Whereas like I think there's still like objective flaws in Tim Burton ones, but you guys obviously enjoyed it a lot more, and I don't have that connection with them. So I was just like, this is shit, and like I just
I think that was,
it depends on person to person, really. Like some people can just fucking deal with it, but some people can just watch it back because like they're watching like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that no, it is Jingle All the Way. They're like going like, this is the fucking best film ever. But like it's dreadful. But like they're just laughing the whole way through, and it's like,
It's just funny to me that you bring up the Batman movies because like that's actually how I feel about the Nolan movies. Like I really enjoy them, but I think they're fucking dog shit.
That's fair. Fair enough.
Oh yeah, Rob, were you going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say like the whole sort of like objective scale and subjective scale. That was the original idea for having the categories that we've got, wasn't it? So like the idea was that you've got sort of story, acting, and production that you can kind of judge on a technical level, and then impact, purpose, and enjoyment are all more personal.
Yeah.
So that's how I always see it. Is I try and sort of mark the top 3 as sort of what they are as a technical piece, so like that would be more objective, and then the bottom 3 is literally just how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's more or less how I look at it. It's just but again, it's like one of those things where it's really
complicated to make this.
Well, it's like first of all, your understanding of the technical aspects affects your objective like your ability to be objective about it is, and then also just the fact of like sometimes it is very hard to separate yourself from your personal opinion, like especially when it comes to like, I think acting it's easier to do, and production I think is easier to do, but something like story, if you're not like someone who is really focused on like story structure and stuff like that, and you're just looking at the story as a whole kind of thing, it becomes a much more personal thing as opposed to like an objective thing.
Yeah, I mean,
but
like,
that is how I try and look at it.
Well, so Endgame's actually a really good example because it's something that a lot of people went, fucking hell, this means so much to me on just kind of an emotional level. And it's sort of like, I really like Endgame, but it's like just trying to watch it with like a kind of an objective eye, and you go like, fucking hell, there's a lot of problems here, but like I'm really enjoying it. I'm having fun. But yeah, like there's a lot of things happening here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But again, it sort of depends on how complicated you want to make this.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, personally, like as much as I will probably continue for the rest of our lives that we're doing this, complaining how shit using numbers is for a score, but like I want to make clear, I'm never complaining that we're using numbers for a score because it's the best option we have. Like anything else would make things too complicated or contrived, and I think it's a good way, like for us to just you have a just concrete score sitting there, and you're like, that's basically what I felt about it. But we're going to talk about it on the call so that I can, get my point across.
Yeah,
not that I'm saying I'm against us changing or like improving stuff. I just mean like, I think things are fine.
I think that's the thing in it, like the scores and the like everything sort of on the spreadsheet and that is always just to sort of keep a record more than anything else, wouldn't it? Like it doesn't really mean anything more than that.
Well, I mean, at worst, they can always be changed. So it's like, yeah.
The way I see it is the scores are basically how I do PowerPoint presentations, which is like you have people who do PowerPoint presentations where they will literally write out paragraphs and have pictures and like this, that, and the other. When I do a presentation and I have to use PowerPoint, I literally just do bullet points. And then I'll look at the PowerPoint, see the first bullet point and go, oh, I know that. And then talk about it rather than reading off of the screen. Like, so that's how I view the spreadsheet. I'm just like, oh yeah, so story 9. Yeah, I really fucking liked it. And this is why. If that analogy wasn't too weird, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that works. That works.
Okay, cool. Because Alec kept making faces, and I was like, "Is this going a bit too off kilter?"
Oh no, sorry, I was looking at messages from my sister, and
fair enough.
I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah, no. But yeah, no, I have nothing to add. That was
fair enough. Does anyone else have anything they want to add about this movie, this wonderful piece of art, or should we move on to? Oh, go on.
Oh.
I'm so excited. Go on,
yep, I do agree that it is a wonderful piece of art, aesthetically speaking. Pretty. And, so the true story that's based on it made me laugh when I was reading through it. So the main guy, who's not nameless, I think is Drew King. Anyway, let's say Drew. Let's just call him Drew.
I mean, you probably shouldn't carry on.
All right, I'll get.
Emmanuel, I'm kidding. Please, just carry on. You're fine.
But yeah, so King, he was he's from the province. Similar situation to Nameless. The Kings ravaged it pretty much, went to war. It's just like, we're gonna kill the king. So similar to Nameless, trained for many years to try to exact this plan, assassinate the king, and he had an assistant. But the thing was, he didn't know how he was going to be able to get close enough to the king to do this. Now, the current king or interim kind of king of his land was really at odds with the king, similar to how the king in this was at odds with that particular province. And in the end, it got so bad. I'm trying to think. I think he was going to end up being killed anyway because of how rebellious he was being. So he said to King, "All right, cut off my head and present it to the king because that's the only way you're going to get close enough." So he let King kill him, chop off his head, and actually bring it to the king, so he could get close enough to say that, "Oh, look, I'm delivering someone you've really been after and you couldn't kill." His assistant that he had brought with him, this other guy, not in martial arts, he was too scared. He's like, and almost kind of gave the game away. He was just like, "Oh no, he's just a country guy, you know. He's not used to people. He's cool. He's not used to this royalty, you know. He's got anxiety. It's cool." He's like, "All right, but you gotta stay outside. You can go in, but alone," which already messed up the plans because it was a 2-man plan. He's just like, "Okay then, I still go in." And while he went in, he was presenting some maps as well as a present to kind of appease the king in a way, because the prize for bringing his head was the same as in the movie, 1,000 pieces of like gold and different authority of land and stuff. So that was also true from back in those times. So hidden within the map that he was also giving the king as an extra present was a poisoned dagger, soaked in poison for time and time, whatnot. So as soon as he was close enough and he was presented it to the king, so he was literally giving it to the king, so he's closer than 10 paces. He took the dagger out as soon as it was revealed and tried to stab the king. But the king also knows martial arts, of course. Saying that, the one mistake the king made was he came to the meeting, you could say, with a ceremonial sword. Long story short, it's useless for combat. And it's really hard to pull out. It's one of these crazy long swords that you need like either 2 people to pull out, or you have to do this elaborate, artful kind of move very slowly to pull out the sword. It doesn't really work when you're running, tripping over yourself, trying to pull this sword out. So he's like this. He's like, "Ah." And the guy keeps trying to go after him and stab him. And like no one's coming because everyone's just like, "Oh yeah, things are cool." But then the physician for the king that started hearing stuff, he's like, "What's going on?" So he starts going in and he's like, "What the crap?" And so the physician, I don't know why he doesn't use one of his scalpels or little stabby knives or something. He takes his bag and throws the whole bag at the assassin. Just hits the assassin in the face. He's just like, "Oh." And then,
This would have been a very different movie.
Exactly. This is why, it made me laugh. I was just laughing this whole time. And so the king was like, "Oh, a chance." So then he pulled out his, he managed to draw his sword because he had enough time after the kind of assassin was stumbling after being hit in the face with his bag. And he then managed to, even before this point, sorry, that one part, just before he was able to pull out the sword, they were circling around a pillar. So imagine he's going to the right, he's going to the left, he's going to the left, he's going to the right. So they were just doing this back and forth. It was too funny. But anyway, so eventually he managed to get his sword out and he stabbed the assassin in the thigh. And then afterwards, he was crumpled on the ground, crying out in pain. And then he's just like, okay. So then he stabbed him 8 to 9 more times just to make sure he was dead. And then afterwards, eventually, like the physician got people and they came in and he's like, "Oh." And so they took the dead body out. And then the assistant who's none the wiser. His sister didn't realize what was happening. They was just like, kill him. He's just like, huh? So they killed their sister. He was just like, oh crap. And one thing which was similar to the film was that after this all happened, the king just kind of sat on his throne, just catatonic for like a good half an hour or hour, just thinking like, what the crap just happened? That was a true story.
To be fair, if they did that in the film, then I would have been like, no, this is absolutely an absurdist comedy.
No, if they did it in this film, what would have happened instead of the physician throwing the bag is he would have like levitated all of his like equipment out of the bag and like launched it with his mind at Jet Li.
Oh, dude, that would have been an awesome scene because you could have just had like the bag flying through the air and then like landing sort of in midair still, and then all of the stuff flying out of it.
It would not have been an awesome scene because that's something that would only work in anime.
Or like he had the bag and he punches out the tools. It's like
I think telekinesis would have really made this. Really, this was the missing ingredient.
that would make it totally unrealistic.
I gotta say, I did enjoy this. I gotta say, I did enjoy the sentiment that Pat watched Blues Brothers and went, "You can't make your car flip when you reverse really fast and you do a handbrake. That's crazy." But then he just watched the entirety of Hero and went,
It's really good.
"Yeah, that's all holding up."
What got me was when she goes to stab him and she doesn't like move up in the air. She just goes. She goes straight at him. Like, okay. But yeah, it's just great. Like such a performance. But a lot of these,
I'm glad most people enjoyed it. Ben.
yeah, Ben. I don't know. I'm surprised Ben didn't like it.
I mean, I get it. Like he clearly like had the same problems as Alec. Like the action was just too ridiculous for him, so it was just distracted from everything else.
Honestly, even after Bad Movie Round, I've never laughed so much at a film. Like, I was honestly in hysterics for the entire runtime. Like, I was having so much fun. That's why I thanked you. I was just like,
Yeah, I was
mate.
not happy about the realization of why you thanked me.
Yeah, I felt a bit bad actually. I was like, "Thank you for this, John," and you were like, "Oh, he really liked 4.5." Oh, radio.
It was right after Ben, so it was like, "Oh, Ben did like it," and then I was like, "Thank you," and I was like, "Oh, good. At least I know someone's like, oh."
just after that as well. It's like when I was watching it, I messaged John because I wasn't sure if I'd seen it. I wasn't sure if I'd seen it or not, and then I messaged John and I was like, "Look, man, I've definitely not seen this." And John was like, "That sounds bad," and I was like, "No, I actually am enjoying it. It's very distinct."
Yeah, like genuinely, like, as soon as I saw that message, I was like, "That's not something you say when you're enjoying something. That's something you say when you're like, this is fucking weird."
I have never seen this.
I got to the point where Nameless runs through the rain and they all slap him in the face, and I was like, "There's not a chance I've seen this scene."
Yeah, I get what you mean because like I was saying in the chat, I was like, wait, I remember this. Wait, the arrows. I've definitely seen this, but I forgot most of it. It's like as soon as I see it, I remember that and a little bit afterwards. Sorry,
well, that's the thing. Like I obviously I remembered the key like plot points, but I didn't remember really anything about the movie. But I absolutely remembered the rain scene at the start. Like that was in fact, Rob can back me up on that because I can't remember exactly what I said, but he'd watched it and I was like, "Oh yeah, the rain scene," and he was just like, "Yep."
I love how they did the fight alongside with the old guy playing the music. That's such a classic Rougier thing as well.
That was one of the bits that made me go, "Hang on," because they were like fighting, and then he just went, "Music guy, playing the fucking song. I was like, hold on a minute, you have to fight.
That's epic.
I mean, yeah, it's because their fights are honourable.
Yeah. I just thought that was such a Rob move where he was just going like, hang on a minute, can we have another song?
No, if it was Rob, he wouldn't have had to talk to the guy. He would have just like in the middle of a strike, he would have like let go of some change, and it would have fallen in the guy's like bowl, and then he would have just carried on.
Oh, that would have been a perfect scene as well. Just like a strike, and then.
I gotta say though, I like this movie a lot more when I realised that it wasn't advocating for dictatorship. I was like, nice.
Does it make you want to give Dirty Harry another go just in case?
Not really, because that is advocating for
Oh, Rob.
Yeah.
I have to ask this before we move on to whose pick it is, and feel free to just move on entirely if I'm putting you on the spot with it. But I noticed at one point earlier you kind of went, and then looked over at your shelf. And I really wanted to know, like, it looked like you were wanting to say something, but you were like, maybe I shouldn't say this. And I just want to know if that is what that was.
So, yeah, Amanda, what's your film?
It wasn't anything as serious as that would imply, but that was the situation. I can't remember what it was now, but Pat said something. I think Pat said something about the style of fights or something. But there's another film that's like it's another Weezier film, but it's not quite as over the top as this. And I was going to recommend it, and then I was like, no, I'm not going to yet because I'm probably going to pick it at some point.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I assumed had happened because I had the same moment slightly late after that where I was about to. Alex said something, and I was about to be like, "Oh, well, you should watch," and I was like, "No, I'm not going to mention it."
Nice.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts from anyone?
It was deceptively not as silly as I thought it was. It tried its hardest to make me convinced that it was a fucking silly film, and
I was not to be fooled.
I was very nearly fooled that about it, the nature of its silliness, but I looking back on it, it wasn't as silly as I thought. So good going, China.
So what you're saying is this was a great start to coming out of bad movie round.
Yeah, it was a really good. It provided a sharp relief from bad movie round. No, I can't even finish it. Go on. Yeah, no, I thought it was. Yeah, talking about it, I think it's held up quite a lot better than I thought it did. So good going.
Good enough for me.
You stretched that comment quite a bit.
I was going to say.
I like that.
It's a show of dominance.
Yeah.
Go on, Dan.
I was going to say like the bit where they die. You know, like the is it Sky and
Broken Sword? Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of got me a little bit. Like she's like, why did you not block it? And then he dies, and she's just like, no, I can't live without this person. And she basically stabs herself. And I was just like, that's such a.
It's a Romeo and Juliet, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a move from most girlfriends, though. Just like, I can't live without you, and she's like, oh, stab. Just, oh. Fair enough.
I really like that thing because I think it shows the like the acting chops of the guy playing Broken Sword, just the face he pulls as he like lets go of the sword, just being like it's very difficult in acting, I think, to like multiple layers of emotion with one face, and I think he did really well at showing what
I'm sorry, I just like how you phrased that, just multiple layers of acting with one face.
Did I say acting?
No, I know what you mean.
No, but did I say acting? I meant emotion if I said acting.
You did say acting, I think.
Okay. But yeah, because like it shows his like, you know, he's got the sort of smarminess of like I got you, but also like you can see a sort of resignation in him, like of I know what's happening here and this is the only thing I can do. And yeah, I just think that was a great scene.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's,
And on that note,
I was and I saw the acting thing as well. I might be fucking this up. I'm gonna hold my hands up and say I might be fucking this up.
yeah.
But the actor who was gonna play, they originally had Sky being played by Jackie Chan. But Jackie Chan had a scheduling conflict. And Jet Li said, no, you should have this guy in, and that guy was Donnie Yen, and Donnie Yen was the guy who was in Rogue One, who says, "I'm one with the Force is with me."
Oh, don't know Donnie Yen for that. Donnie Yen's done a lot of cool stuff that's not Rogue One.
Yeah,
yeah.
I haven't ever. I'll hold my hands up. I haven't seen any Donnie Yen films. I'm a bad weeb, but yeah, I thought that was neat though. That was
Weeb is Japanese.
Well,
Which makes you an even worse one.
There you go. I just thought that was a nice thing because they said we fucked up getting Jackie Chan for this, and Jet Li went, I'm gonna get my mate into this, and it was Donnie Yen. I thought that was neat.
I'm surprised that Jackie Chan would have been involved with this because like it's very it's very Chinese, isn't it? And he's from Hong Kong.
I will check this out now because I don't know if it. I don't know. Carry on. Keep talking.
I mean, yeah. However, even though he is Hong Kong, he was also very big in Chinese cinema, which is one of the main reasons recently with all the political shifts, they reached out to him as one of the biggest actors and said, do you want to kind of basically come over to the dark side and be a big actor for mainland China? And he said yes. But that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff about him over the past 2 years.
I just thought it was nice because, like, you know, just because this might have been the. I'm saying this with absolutely no evidence, but I think this might have been the thing to just sort of catapult Donnie Yen into just sort of mainstream stuff, and I think it's nice that it just happened because Jet Li went, "Hey, he's good." Like he's just helping his buddy out.
If they had put Jackie Chan there, that you would have felt like this was a sillier movie.
Possibly. I say this with only the cartoon as my main familiarity with Jackie Chan.
Wow.
The fucking cartoon, though. Shit me. What a brilliant cartoon.
Yeah, it's fun.
Fucking love that cartoon. I might watch it some more.
Also, I'm realizing only now that I kept saying sky when I meant flying snow. So there's that. But, you know, here we are.
Yeah, Donnie Yen's in Blade 2 as well.
Yeah.
Sadly, he is also in Rogue One.
Alec.
I liked him in that, to be fair, guys. But anyway, he is a good actor, yeah, in a lot of things he's done.
Yeah. So, Emmanuel, what's the film?
Did no one else have any closing thoughts?
No.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
We're done now.
Yeah. All right, Ben, you good? Or?
I'm good.
Okay, cool. Well, as I said last week, my film is, I guess, the first one to break the no female leads.
Yep.
So this one has a female lead, and it is A Tale of Two Sisters.
Interesting.
This is a so there's not much blood or anything in it. There's like one,
I love that. That's the.
there's like
It's a rated R though.
Is it? Oh, I just want to let John know there's not bodily horror in it, really. I mean, there's blood at one point, and then no other point.
Look,
so.
blood is fine. Just don't have rusty scissors going near genitalia, and we'll be all right.
Why?
Like,
Sorry, what's it called? The Tale of Two Sisters.
Tale of Two Sisters. Yeah, and it is my favorite Korean. I'm sorry, it's my favorite Asian horror film.
Oh, nice.
And the only place I know you can watch it so far is Amazon Prime. Is to rent. Otherwise, I haven't really seen it elsewhere. But unless someone else finds.
Well, I gotta
Yeah,
say,
okay.
I can tell from this that it's not going to be fucked up in any way whatsoever. It's going to be a completely normal film, maybe a comedy. It'll be fun for the whole family.
Yeah, you'll be watching
also-
it like an evil demon will come out the side, and then Jet Li will appear from the ceiling upside down and start swinging his sword.
Manuel won't thank me for this, but there's also a sort of shitty American remake of it as well.
Don't thank him, Emmanuel.
Yeah. No.
Never thank Pat.
No,
No, not for that kind of shit.
I remember. I didn't watch it. I remember when it kind of came out because I was working in the cinema as well.
Isn't it called The Shining?
No. Oh man. But
I just
no,
mean
I
there's
can't. Do
two
you
girls in
remember the name of it? Do you remember the name of it, Pat?
Let me find out.
It was called Shitty American Sisters.
The Tale of Two Brothers.
Because I think they had changed the name, and I thought at first, because this was after, I guess they were kind of building upon. You had the remake of The Ring, which is not great, but not terrible. Then afterwards, you had a remake of a really good other Korean film, which I'm not going to say, because I might actually do that next. And then you had this. I was just like, what the crap is this?
The remake is called The Uninvited.
Oh.
What a shit name.
No, it just generally describes me.